Everybody, Cam Pauli here with the Outdoor Sportsman Group. We're live, our first Facebook Live for Deer Week, kicking off our annual Deer Week campaign, which is 1 week deer hunting marathon on both Sportsman Channel and Outdoor Channel. Here today with Mr. Steven Rinella, the host of MeatEater, the hit series that's going to be airing every Monday night at 9 p.m. First episode premiered earlier this Monday. Make sure to watch it during Deer Week, Monday night at 9 p.m. Steve, I know you and your team are in full-blown hunting mode right now. Just want to thank you for the time for joining us today. As the MeatEater brand and show has evolved over the past, 7 years, it seems like deer hunting, whitetails in particular, have always been a staple of your brand and species that you guys enjoy pursuing most. And they're kind of considered one of the most coveted game animals in all of North America. What role has deer hunting played in the development of you as a hunter from your childhood to who you are today?
Yeah, well, I grew up in the Midwest, so I grew up in Michigan, and it was the only big game animal we had. I mean, you could hunt. There were places you could draw elk tags in the north of Michigan. You could hunt bears in the north. As far as big game hunting, that was the only thing. That was the only game in town, and I wasn't even really aware of other kinds of big game hunting except for seeing it in magazines. So my father had always grown up deer hunting. We hit it very hard, like October archery season. I remember being up and, at the time you were supposed to be 12 years old before you could go out and hunt. And our dad didn't pay a whole lot of attention to that rule. So I remember being like pretty young, sitting up in a tree with a bow, and then November 15th, that was the opening day of firearm season. You were absolutely out in the woods on firearm season. And I think it's weird because so much of my interest in big game hunting came from whitetail hunting. But then later when I got done with school, when I got out of college, I moved out west and started hunting and started hanging out in Montana and Alaska and elsewhere and started hunting a lot of other big game. But foundationally, it was always whitetails. Now, if I had to pick a thing, probably mule deer. So still deer, but a different deer. A regret I have about growing up the way we hunted deer is we'd use a lot of carrots and apples and make a bait pile and sit over the bait pile. And I feel like I should have spent that time instead trying to learn more about how deer are actually using the landscape. I feel like I missed a lot of educational experiences by focusing so heavy on hunting apple piles and carrot piles, And I wondered what would have shaken out differently had I really just focused on understanding how the deer were going to behave on their own and not trying to manipulate their movements like that. But still, it's a good foundation, man. And we always had a lot of venison.
Oh, definitely. It's experience in itself. You got to start somewhere, and then to transcend and as far as you come with yourself in your personal hunting career, I mean, you just have different experiences and you build on those time and time again. So, kind of leading into my next question, what's your allure? What's the allure of deer hunting? Like you said, especially whitetail, it's so common. They're prevalent species across the majority. You can basically hunt them anywhere in the lower 48. But, what's the allure of the deer hunting culture? And what's so appealing to sportsmen across the country about hunting whitetail deer?
What I like about deer is you can just always hunt deer. It's like there's some stuff, a few years ago I drew a muskox permit, right, on Nunivak Island up in Alaska. So you go out there, it's impossible to draw the tag. You go once, it's a cool experience, but after doing it, I have no real desire to go do it again. But there's something about deer hunting where every time you go, I just get excited about going the next time. And you can make a whole life's journey out of it. And there's not barriers to doing it. There's so much stuff I've been putting in for a bighorn sheep tag now for 20 some years. I still haven't drawn one. So I can aspire to be a bighorn sheep hunter, but I can't even get a permit. And if I'm lucky, I'll get one or two in my lifetime. Meanwhile, you can hunt deer pretty much across the entire country, over-the-counter tags all the time, so you can just immerse yourself in it and get good at it, and it's just a widely available thing. In the case of whitetails, there's not many big game animals. When you look at all, the 12 or 13 species of big game animals we have in North America, there aren't many where the supply is actually greater than the demand, right? We could hunt more deer than we do. So I think that's, for me, probably the single greatest allure is just it's available for everyone. It's inexpensive. You can make a lifetime out of it. And it's not so wildly aspirational that that you can't do it. As much as I love putting in for limited draw stuff, like I apply for goat tags, moose tags, all kinds of stuff. And then most years you wind up hunting deer because you can hunt deer every year, you know, and that's what makes it special.
Well, it is fairly low hanging fruit for most people. And, you know, I know this is a question I kind of have later on, but, you know, access is an issue that I continually see, at least in my neck of the woods. I'm in southeastern Wisconsin. You know, we've seen the consolidation of, you know, maybe smaller family farms years ago where everybody kind of had a 40 that they could hunt, or an 80, or maybe a smaller parcel even.
Yeah.
So even though it is really low hanging fruit, there are still a lot of opportunities to hunt whitetail in both private and public. And in some parts of the country, there's even growing opportunities with increased access to public lands that we haven't before. You know, what are some of these barriers that we currently face as whitetail hunters, and how can we overcome that obstacle, whether it's access or also introduction, maybe not having that mentor, that person that introduces you to hunting at a young age? Let's say you're, you know, 30-year-old guy like myself and you want to get into whitetails. Where do you start? How do you find a place to hunt?
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, there's a paradox in all this, and it earlier in our conversation referred to just the intense popularity of deer hunting. The paradox in deer hunting comes from as deer become more popular and more coveted, and kind of, you know, in a way they become a little bit, they become commodified a little bit, where there's value, right? Like we assign them cultural value, right? We like them, we like to see them. And we put, like, there's basically, they have kind of a monetary value in that we're willing to make great expenditures on gear, access, trips to go hunt. And what it does is that great popularity of deer hunting makes people a little bit more possessive of deer. I'm 45 years old, so I started, you know, I've been hunting deer now for 35 years. When I was growing up younger, when I was a little kid, I grew up in an area that was kind of an interface between some northern forest areas and then ag communities. And in those ag communities as a kid, you would have farmers that did, there's a lot of guys that did dairy. They raised corn and alfalfa to feed cows. And the attitude back then was kind of like a come one, come all attitude. And there might be a 400 acre farm that was just sort of understood, like everyone could kind of hunt it. Everyone from your church community could basically hunt property of anyone in the church community. And it was just really free for all. But then as deer became so popular and people kind of moved away from that ag lifestyle, like farms didn't require big extended families to operate them anymore because of changes in equipment and other issues. And deer became something people really cared about. Over time, you found that landowners, not aggressively, I'm not even criticizing, but became like, you know what, we're just going to have 2 or 3 of us hunt the farm now. It's not going to be that, you know, 20 people are sort of carrying a sort of loose permission to hunt the farm. And I think that loss of places to go, hunting's exciting for people, man. And I've taken many, many, many people out on their first deer hunts. Many. If the number of them that continues to hunt is small. They all have a good experience, but a lot of them don't continue to hunt. I feel if you said, hey, I'm going to take you hunting once, and then I'm going to give you access to like this 400 acre farm, they'd still be hunting today. I think that like knowing where to go is a barrier to entry. But I don't even know that I'm really putting it as a problem, because I know a lot of people who are ambitious and like pretty gung-ho hunters, and gung-ho hunters find a way. Like they always find a way.
Well, and I definitely think you're right, because I've had that experience just taking people duck hunting, right? You know, and then they ask you, when are you going next time? Like it's that fear, that comfort level of going with somebody, especially in the spot, they have the equipment, they have everything. And to get them to that next step where they are taking the initiative to go on their own, I think that's one of the hardest places to get as a hunter, because we're all kids. We got parents or relatives setting us up in spots, you know, kind of holding our hands, so to speak. But when, you know, the little birdie's got to leave the nest, that can be one of the scariest points. Even if you have a passion for hunting, to go and do it on your own, that's the next level, right? So that's
you're getting into personality types, right? So why is it like, I don't know if it's a problem. I don't know if it's, I want to tread lightly here because these are like pretty sensitive issues.
Yeah.
Let's just say there's an access problem. Like we agree, or not an access problem. We would all like to see more access. There is an access problem, but there's also a people problem where a lot of people are just like, quite frankly, man, not very ambitious and a little bit lazy. But like, I always am meeting people. Like I work with a lot of young guys, and they come into an area and every weekend they're scouting. They're like on maps, scouting, sharing information, driving all over the place trying to find spots. These guys always have tons of spots because they're just they are dedicated and focused. So it's kind of like, you know, classic American elbow grease, man. There's always ways to do it. Like, you could still make a pretty cogent argument that we're living in, like right now, we're living in the hunting good old days. I don't see anything to really, I don't see anything to really counter that besides some petty annoyances.
Definitely, I completely agree. You know, I feel like the pendulum's kind of swinging back too, because, you know, we go back to, you know, maybe the 1950s, 60s, 70s, kind of the golden age of what I would call like a traditional hunting camp. And then we entered, you know, a different time where maybe it was more focused on trophy hunting or land management or having your own, you know, big chunk of land, which is great. I mean, I think a lot of us aspire to have that to a degree, but I feel like it's kind of coming back where we're starting to focus more on culture, more on, you know, shoot what you want to shoot, you know, it's your decision. I think there's a lot of good vibes in the industry right now. And part of that is the work ethic that these young guys are putting, I mean, guys my age and older. I mean, I see 70-year-olds that are using, you know, Onyx maps to scout locations that they might have never even knew of that were in their area before.
Oh, yeah.
Transit, you know, state-owned transportation property or something that they now have access rights to. So again, yeah, it comes back down to initiative, and that's just, like you said, good old-fashioned American elbow grease, and you just gotta, you know, take the initiative, take it upon yourself to find those locations. They are out there, and there's guys shooting. I mean, you know, getting venison or antler, whatever their goal is for their personal hunt off those spots. So, you know, that kind of leads into another question here. I had an Instagram user. Let me just confirm the name here. Ren717. You know, he was talking about public land, and he wanted to know, what are some of your best practices if you're looking for a new place to hunt, either locally or remote? So what are some tools or different approaches you can take to scouting those public parcels?
I would have been a good guy to ask that question, of 10, 15 years ago, you know? But now I'm not a good guy to ask that question, because I like working in the field that I work in, and where I have the sort of professional luxury to just be like very engrossed in hunting and spend tons of time with a lot of hunters from around. I have this. This is gonna sound. I don't want this to come off the wrong way or sound like I'm bragging about something. 'Cause it's not like bragging. It's not like a thing that I did. But just that, like, anywhere in the country, like at this point, we're kind of like a 1 or 2 phone calls away from someone that knows every area really well. And so 20 years ago, I mean, we just pounded everything we could think of, man. We scouted all the time. Now it's like a little bit different. It's almost like cheating, because we just know so many people through work that if we're going to go hunt Colorado or whatever, Southeast Colorado, like we'll call one guy, and then pretty soon in 5 minutes we're on the phone with some guy that's been hunting that area for 20 years. And so I'm not like a great person to ask anymore, but I have memories of those days. And in those days, we just had a terrible wanderlust. You know, we had a terrible wanderlust and just went and checked stuff out. And we didn't view success for a weekend was learning something. Success for a weekend wasn't like that you got something necessarily. It was like, did we learn a thing? Did we scratch something off the map that we'll never want to go there again? Did we add something to the map? Like, did our understanding? And we looked at it very much as a journey. In a number of places around the country, there's like sort of a journey to kind of like figuring it out, and pursuing that was the end goal, you know? So that's kind of it's not as technical as some people might like, oh, you get on Onyx and look at whatever. There's a lot of technical information out there, but I think what I'm more interested in is more the theoretical, right? Like to have a cultivated sense of wanderlust and curiosity, where you're just checking everything out all the time and looking and remembering.
Well, I think it doesn't have to be a technical answer either, right? Like, what you're talking about is, I know we're part of the outdoor industry community, if you want to call it that, but you know, locally, I have my own outdoor community locally that I've built over the past 20 years of my life. And I think some guys that I see, you know, on Facebook or wherever, they're, you know, where do I scout or where to hunt? What's a good place to hunt? A lot of times it's just boots on the ground, like old-fashioned knocking on doors, you know, meeting farmers. Like, there's farmers that I met scouting for goose fields when I was a kid that I still have a relationship with today that I would consider part of my, you know, hunting community. So you know, people that are now a resource for you, but unless you're out there knocking on doors or asking people, like, you and I were just talking about flow fishing for salmon just very briefly before, but I was down at a marina, earlier this week, just talking to guys a little bit, not letting them know I'm interested in fishing at all, just kind of playing dumb and, what are you doing here? How do you, X, Y, and Z. And eventually you'll build that community of people, kind of like we have. It is a luxury in the outdoor industry to have that, where you can call up anybody and, ask, is this going on this part of the country yet? You see movement, birds or whatever migration you might be watching. But you can build your own community like that locally. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the hunting industry, but you build a community over time to tap into. And that might be the best resource of all, honestly. There's things that, mapping applications are great. I utilize them heavily myself, but there's sometimes, just good old fashioned, community knowledge with the group of people that you're building around yourself. So
yeah, I think it's important too, is to be a little bit open, because everybody knows some stuff. And if you're just always very guarded about your spots and guarded about your secrets and guarded about your information, you're probably going to find that other people are that way too. And I'll tend to, when I get a good sense for we're we're on the same level and on the same page and how we look at the world, I'll venture out and be a little bit generous with some advice and hey, you might want to go check this out. And then you kind of build these relationships where you're open with each other about your findings. And then you can have some sort of like exponential growth in what you know about, because you're getting other people's experiences that are being made your own today. I had a guy just this morning give us a pretty hot tip on something just because we were having to be caught up in conversation at a shooting range.
I feel like it's sometimes the guys that have like their one good spot and they're so tied up in it that, they're losing it, that sometimes those aren't even the best hunters to begin with, because it's like you have one spot. Like some of the best hunters I know, they have like just tons of options at their fingertips, and again, it comes with time and practice and knowledge and, kind of opening yourself up to that community. So, I guess for me, it'd be, don't be so closed off to, sharing knowledge, because sometimes that prevents people from, I think, excelling and getting to that next level that they want.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So again, just want to remind everybody, MeatEater premieres this last week, but it airs again Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Deer Week kicks off September 16th, runs to the 22nd. It's our annual deer hunting marathon all week on Outdoor Channel and Sportsman Channel. Speaking of deer hunting, Steve, we all kind of have that first deer memory. I mean, it's just something I remember. I shot my first deer literally 150 yards from where I'm sitting at this desk in my parents' woods across the road.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I remember it vividly, yeah. Actually, every deer I've shot has literally been across the road. So this one was from last year, and that was just gun season buck. But, I remember them all to a degree, but I think the first one is one that just, burns in our minds. And I know you grew up in Michigan and spent a lot of time deer hunting there during your youth. I mean, is that where you harvested your first deer, and what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I remember vividly. I remember the first deer I missed. Like, I could probably walk into the tree I was sitting in, and that deer was impossibly close. I could have jumped on that deer. I missed him. I was so nervous. I remember where I got my first doe, and I could definitely walk you to the spot where I got my first doe. I can tell you where it was standing, where I was leaning against a tree. And I remember I got my first buck. And I could take you and show you where I was sitting and where he was walking, right? So, yeah, no, I remember all that stuff really clearly. There's other stuff that kind of gets lost, but some of those earlier memories, when you're so excited, they stick with you pretty good. I try to be careful to not let my recollections run wild, and like stay pretty grounded. But I was fortunate where I grew up with two brothers, and we still hang out together all the time and hunt together. So you could kind of test your own memory by like their recollections, right? And it makes you stay grounded in reality and not have it drift off into some wild remembrances that might not be too accurate,
Yep, exactly. No, I hear you. And earlier in the conversation, you mentioned, grew up hunting whitetails, but now you kind of, mule deer has probably become your favorite, species of deer to pursue. How about as far as cooking goes? Like, is there one species that you think tastes better than the others? I've heard like a lot of folks talk about Sitka deer. One of OSG's employees lives in Maryland, and he swears Sitka deer is the best venison out there.
Do
you have any words to back that claim up, or do you think there's a different type of deer that's more tasty than another?
No, we've been eating some Sitka deer the last couple of years. So we always argue whether you're supposed to say Sitka or Sika. So we've been eating and it's like my buddy, he describes it as elk or veal.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good. We eat a lot of, man. I'll say I like to hunt mule deer. We eat a lot of mule deer. And, you know, I've eaten a lot of wild game for a lot of years. And so I don't have the sense that some people have about stuff being gamey or not gamey. And, you know, my wife doesn't hunt. And when we eat mule deer, she likes it, right? And a lot of times we'll eat other stuff, and she'll point out other stuff is not being as good as mule deer. And some people think like big mule deer bucks are too ruddy and don't taste good. We love them. I mean, I would be perfect content just eating mule deer. I'd eat big mule deer bucks the rest of my life, man. I look forward to eating them. I think they're phenomenal. I mean, they got like a pretty potent, unique flavor, but I've just come to appreciate it.
Awesome. Any preferred way of cooking them? I mean, depending on the cut, obviously.
No, we cook a lot. Well, yeah, we grill a lot of stuff. We do a lot of stuff on a pellet grill.
Yeah.
Big roasts and things. We make burgers. I used to like be pretty into cooking pretty elaborate meals, but we have 3 little kids now, and there's no time to do anything.
There's not time for much of anything when you got.
Dude, we make burgers and we fry fish, and we're just trying to get it taken care of. We just try to get everybody fed, man. It's like it's going way downhill.
Yeah, that's speaking of kids, like how does that work with, you know, I mean, MeatEater's obviously grown leaps and bounds just in the past year alone. I mean, you guys are moving to a new office. I don't know, I'm sure people have seen the sponsored video of you acting like a inflatable tube man, right? That's what we determined the term is.
Yeah.
So on Facebook, you can probably find it on the MeatEater's Facebook page. But how does how are you balancing the whole MeatEater brand, and you still do speaking engagements, and then obviously TV and everything? How do you balance that with family, and is there a clear delineation between like your outdoor lifestyle and kind of your home life, or is there a lot of crossover?
You know, can you still hear me good?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay, great. The kids, that's where I feel my greatest obligation is through having my kids be well taken care of. And that's the thing that, like, I have a really fortunate, lucky life, in large part because my kids, like, my professional life is really rewarding and really fun and adventurous. And the thing that keeps it in check is like constantly asking myself, is this all getting in the way of me being a good parent? Is this giving me like a special opportunity to give my kids some cool experiences? You know, it's something that I am constantly sorting out, and I don't claim to have the answer. But the thing that is the most sobering part of it is just trying to like keep track and I don't want to mess my kids up, you know. And they're like great kids. They love to be outside. And so that's the thing, like that's the sort of barometer. The thing I'm always looking at is, am I able to still maintain, you know, like a good relationship with my kids and have plenty of time with them? And what it winds up kind of looking like for me is that I spend a fair bit of time away from them, but then I have the luxury of spending a lot of time like very intensely involved with them.
Yeah.
So where you might look at your own relationship with your parents and be like, oh yeah, you know, for all these years go by and we always eat dinner together. We always spend an hour together every night. We do that, but we kind of do more of like a week not together, but then weeks where we're very, very together, doing a lot of activities that a lot of kids, frankly, like don't get to go do. So I don't want to say it's better than what other people have. I don't think that it's necessarily worse than what other people have. It's just like different. And we found a way to make it work in our family. But if I came to know that it was detrimental, I would go in the direction of my kids. I wouldn't go in the direction of my job. No way, man. Like I would, without hesitation, go in the path of taking care of my family.
Yeah, that's an interesting question to ask. I've seen a lot of memes floating on there lately. Like, I sat one to my buddy who was giving me such a hard time when I had my boys about making it out, you know, during goose season or whatever. And I had 2 little boys at home, and it does get increasingly hard. And the meme was like a pregnancy test, you know, and it said the killer of hunting seasons or something to that effect, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's a lot. It has to do with relationships in the household, and it has to do with your passions. And, you know, if you got a lot of support behind you, that makes a world of difference. But, you know, we are getting into deer hunting season, and I mean, you see it all the time. In Wisconsin, we have the deer hunter widow camps, where women get together for parties when the guys are gone for literally 9 days during the gun season. So it's culture, though. It's part of the fun of it. And admittedly, some wives or husbands, if it's just their wife hunts or vice versa, if they hunt together, it is part of our culture, and I think a lot of people end up enjoying it at the end of the day. So, any deer hunts on the books for you guys coming up that you're really looking forward to?
Yeah, a couple. I got some. I'm going to go do a elk trip, but I do have a mule deer trip.
Okay.
Wyoming, and then I'll hunt whitetails in Michigan later in the winter.
Awesome.
I'm trying to think of other deer trips. And some other big game stuff. A couple of antelope things coming up. We'll hunt down in Texas. We'll go hunt down in Texas a little bit. But yeah, definitely every year.
Awesome.
Some kind of deer hunting every year.
You guys always got something cooking. So, real quickly, I want to also, you guys have the Whitetail Weekly newsletter. I think there's a link. There's also a link for that in our copy if folks want to sign up. I know you.
Oh, you got a link there? That's great. Yeah, I was gonna say, man, if I know you guys are providing tons of whitetail stuff, but people want to go get even more. Yeah. You can go to themeateater.com and sign up for our Whitetail Weekly newsletter, and you'll find all kinds of other stuff there. You kind of track what we're doing there.
Yeah, we got the link in the bio, and I've read your stuff for years. You got Mark Kenyon, you got a whole. I mean, you guys have really built an extensive team just in the last 2 years, and the whitetail content's phenomenal. You guys do a great job with it. So again, if you're looking for more whitetail content in addition to what OSG is providing, you've got MeatEater, the Whitetail Weekly newsletter that you can get from Steven and his team. Again, MeatEater every Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Watch Steve, the rest of his guys. Deer Week starts September 16th. So again, deer hunting for an entire week on both Sportsman Channel and Outdoor Channel. If you want to watch past episodes of Steve's of MeatEater, you can go to myoutdoortv.com. Watch all the past episodes there, and then obviously Steve and his guys have their individual Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts. I think you guys are at MeatEater on Instagram and then MeatEater TV on Twitter. So, and then Steve also has his personal Twitter and Instagram handles at Steven Rinella. So, Steve, thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it. Great conversation. Looking forward to seeing your episode airing on Monday for Deer Week. I think you're hunting in Nevada and Colorado for next week's episode. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for being so generous about plugging all of our stuff, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks again. And thanks again to everybody watching on all of our OSG platforms. Tune in to Deer Week next week, September 16th through September 22nd. We look forward to showcasing some of the best deer hunting content, including MeatEater, Monday night at 9. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks again, Steve, for your time. Appreciate it.
Take care.